Let's talk about a situation that people initially were not as sanguine about, which was the quarter from Starbucks. And we've got CEO, what a show this morning. CEO Kevin Johnson joins us. Kevin, I don't know, I could take one of two ways. I could say bad numbers, or I could say, look out, you're about to open up around the country, and there's going to be lines around the block. My biggest worry is how are you going to handle the lines both safely and in terms of time? And I'm taking the latter, the optimistic approach, as you know I like to take with Starbucks.
Well, Jim, certainly, we have been on a journey, and this journey, you think about it, we're in week 15 now since we started working on COVID-19 in China. And we're now 7 weeks behind that in the U.S. We're in week 8 here in the U.S. And we've learned some things about how this plays out. There's a phase you go through that we call mitigate and contain. And that's the phase where governments instruct people to shelter at home, businesses shut down, and really everything stops while we flatten the curve and stop the spread of COVID. Now, we went through that in China for about 3 weeks. We've gone through that now in the U.S. for about 6 weeks. And as we're seeing the virus flatten and the spread of the virus flatten, we're now entering a new phase, a phase that really is described as monitor and adapt. Now, we started that in China. And in Monitor and Adapt, we reopen stores. We do it in a safe way. And we slowly turn up the dial as we get customers back into more normal patterns. And so starting next week here in the U.S., we are going to open a significant number of Starbucks stores. We, by early June, plan to have over 90% of our stores opened in the U.S. And so we are beginning the monitor and adapt phase, which now is the path to recovery. Now, don't be confused. It's going to take some time for a vaccine or the appropriate treatments to be available for COVID-19. So we're going to be in the monitor and adapt phase while that happens. But by monitoring the number of COVID cases, by adapting the different customer experiences we create in our stores, we're going to be able to open and begin that on-ramp to recovery in the U.S., which is a significant milestone.
All right, speaking of on-ramp, you talked on the call about entryway handoff, something that I've been desperate for at Starbucks. Can you make this work? Contactless entryway handoff to me means that you got an acceleration of same-store sales like we would definitely not expect.
Well, as we open next week, we're going to open. We've had drive-thrus open only drive-thrus open. So we've had, roughly 50% of our stores closed, over a several week period. So as we open, we're going to open in a safe way with drive-thru, with mobile order for pickup. And in this pickup, we have a contactless handoff. It's at the entryway. And in other cases, we've got mobile order for drive-thru. We're going to enable mobile order for curbside pickup. And in some cases where it's safe in certain cities or communities, we might even have to go. And we're going to begin there. But one thing we do know is what customers want right now, what consumers are looking for are experiences that are safe, familiar, and convenient. Look, people have been sheltering at home for 6 weeks, and they want to get out and do something. But they also want to be safe. They want to know that whatever they're going to go do is not going to contribute to the further spread of the virus, and they don't want to get sick. So they want something that's safe. So they want to go someplace that's trusted, someplace that's familiar, and someplace that's convenient. And that is exactly what we are enabling, an experience that is oriented towards a safe, familiar, convenient experience for our customers. And as we do that, we know that they will show up.
Hey, I got this idea. Instead of talking about the virus, infection, danger, Nitro cold brew. Isn't this maybe the coldest, hottest drink that you've had in years?
Well, it is. If you look at what's happened over the last 2 or 3 years, this whole balance of beverage mix has shifted from primarily hot beverages to a mix of cold and hot, specifically on our coffee and espresso platforms. So cold brew and Nitro cold brew, now are a significant driver of sales. And this just goes back to what we know how to do well, which is let's create a great experience in our stores, let's innovate on beverage, and then let's extend that relationship to a digital customer relationship. And so cold brew, Nitro cold brew, the cold foams that we're introducing, all of those things are driving a significant amount of interest and connection with our customers, even in the period where we just had drive-thrus open over this last month. So we feel very good about our beverage platform. We feel very good about the new breakfast sandwiches and wraps that we introduced, and we feel very good about the plans we have to reopen Starbucks over the next 30 days.
That's that early June comment, Kevin, is getting a lot of attention even as we speak. We love to talk about the percentage of stores that are open, but what does traffic look like in this new world where capacity is limited? Maybe you do more curbside, it's more drive-in. What should we get used to in the way of traffic, which even in the old world, we're trying to figure out ways to get big percentage gains?
Well, here's one thing I think that you should be aware of, and something that we just kind of shared broadly is, pre-COVID in the United States, 80% of our customer occasions were for takeaway, were for to go. So these were customers that were either ordering in our stores or mobile ordering and picking up their beverage and their food and then taking it away to go consume it somewhere outside of our stores. And so we have the throughput, the capacity to meet that demand. We had it before, we have it today. All we've done is just sort of modified the way that they order through mobile ordering and the pickup to really drive that. And what we found when we opened the drive-thrus, people find the channel where they could get access to Starbucks. We had lines around the block in many of our drive-thrus, and even our drive-thrus as they opened, were performing. Some of those drive-thrus were comping positive, in fact. And so, I think the first thing we're trying to do is make sure our customers know that we are reopening Starbucks. We are doing it in a safe and responsible manner. And we're there to deliver, a little bit of uplifting experience for their day. To come get your beverage, come get your cold brew, come get your Nitro cold brew, and we're here to serve you, and we look forward to that. And frankly, next week, a significant number of those stores across the country are going to reopen.
Right, Kevin, it's David. Yeah, I think as you said on the call, approximately 90% of all company-operated stores, U.S. Starbucks stores, are reopened by early June. You also, though, talk about this current phase of one that you're calling monitor and adapt. And you talked about your monitoring capability on your conference call. What actually is involved in that? What are you monitoring? What are you watching to help predict how you need to adapt?
Yeah, well, David, these are things that we learned in China. In China, every day we get visibility to if there are new COVID cases by city in China. And the data that we get reports even were those cases imported or community spread. And that's information that government, health officials, and businesses all look at. So when we see that, and it gives us a sense of, is there a potential spread of the virus in a certain city? And if there is, what can we do to be responsible in making sure we're dialing back and implementing extra safety protocols? But for the most part in China, that data just gives us confidence that we slowly turn the dial up. In fact, by turning the dial up, we start to now expand the number of services that we provide to customers. So for example, in the U.S., we now get daily feeds by county of the number of COVID cases. And this is combined with some of the technology that our artificial intelligence team has done. The Deep Brew team has come up with ways to get also customer sentiment as well as our partner sentiment combined with the COVID data, intersected with the store locations. And it starts to give us a digital picture by store of what's happening in that community. That data is now allowing us to figure out the appropriate protocols to implement in that store. And so, next week, you're going to see stores open that have mobile order for pickups. Some will have curbside. Some will have the contactless delivery. And some stores might even be open for to-go, where you can come in and order and take your food and beverage and leave. As we monitor this data, though, we're going to start to see communities where we can now turn the dial up and offer limited seating in the stores. Now, that's going to happen probably a few weeks down the road as we keep monitoring in certain stores, not some big switch across the country, but in a targeted way. And by offering limited seating, we can now ensure social distancing and a safe, familiar experience of community in our stores. And so that's what the data is helping us do. It's helping us really adapt the formats and the protocols we offer in our stores and do it in a way that meets the needs and meets the aspirations of our customers.
Kevin, there was a moment on the conference call where it talked about how your numbers weren't as good in China as Yum China. And then you talked about how, well, you're more in tourist areas, they're more in cities. It made me think that your saturation in China is far less than I thought. That I realized that maybe you are you've hit the travel areas, but is it possible that you could do double or maybe even triple the number of Starbucks based on what we heard last night of Yum China versus you?
Well, look, here's my belief. Pre-COVID, we were opening a net new 600 stores per year in China. In fact, that's a new store on average every 12 hours. We just announced last night we've throttled back just for this year from 600 new stores to 500 new stores. But as we go into fiscal 21, we're going to ramp it back up to 600 new stores. So we can open a new store in China on average every 12 hours. And Jim, we could do that for at least the next decade or two. There is immense addressable market for us to go capture in China. Think of it. It is a tea drinking culture that we are introducing premium coffee to. And as we've done that over the last 20 years, we're now over 4,300 stores. And there's a phenomenal long-term opportunity for growth in China. And that's why we're so bullish on it. And that's why we continue to invest in it. In fact, we just announced a $130 million capital investment to build a coffee innovation park. It's another one of the roasting plants that we have will be built in China, and it will be completely green. It is an environmentally sustainable roasting plant in China. It's one of the global roasting plants that we will now operate, and so we're very bullish on China for the long term.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin. Again, a stock that looks down that was wrong, but that's okay. Market gets things wrong. Always good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jim.